Alright, so for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate both of these. Um, anything to 0 power is 1, but I'm going to go ahead and do the negative 1 first. Negative 1 times 0 is going to be 0, and then we end up with 6. Then we have negative 2 times negative 1, so that's going to be positive 2. Okay, and so this ends up being 1 times 6 squared, so we end up with 36 for this one. Now, if you look at this one, we would go ahead and subtract the exponents. It would be 6 minus 4. And we're going to take all that to the third power, so we end up with 9 squared to the third power, so we end up multiplying those together. So we get 9 to the 6th, and then 9 to the 6th power would end up giving us 531,441. Alright, in this we're going to simplify these expressions. And then we'll kind of talk through the properties as we're going through. Here we have y to the 7th, z to the 4th, over z to the negative 2 to the negative 1st, z squared. Alright, so for this one, first thing we're going to use is the power property. We're going to get the negative 1 times this. So we end up with y to the 7th, z to the 4th, over z squared, z squared. Okay, because we have this negative times a negative here. Yeah. Alright, so that was power over power. Took the negative 1 times that. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and combine these. And the property we're going to use there is product of the powers. Okay, so when we're multiplying and we have the same base, we end up adding them. So we end up with y to the 7th, z to the 4th on top, over z to the 4th. Okay, and so again we use the product of powers. Okay, now we're going to simplify the top and the bottom. Now to use that, we're going to use the quotient property. So we end up with y to the 7th, z (4 minus 4). Okay, so we end up with y, again that's the 7th, z to the 1st. Alright, so we use quotient properties there. Now, the next one, anything to the 0 power is 1, so that's technically the 0 exponent property. So that ends up being 1, so we end up with y to the 7th. Alright, we're going to simplify this one too. Now here we're just going to end up multiplying all this together. And the way we're going to do that is use the product of powers. So they all have the same base. It's going to be negative 3 plus 5 plus 8. So negative 3 plus 5 is going to give us 2. So we end up with k2 plus that. So we end up with k to the 10th. Alright, let's look at C. We're going to start out by using power of quotients property here. We're going to do that because we have this power out here, and we're going to make sure it goes with everything in the quotient. So we end up with b to the negative 3 to the negative 2, and then over b to c fifth to the negative 2. Okay, and so then now we're going to do power of a power. Alright, so when we do power of power, we're going to end up with negative 3 times negative 2 over 5 times negative 2. Okay, and so when we do that, we end up with, well, now we're doing powers, but anyway, so we end up with b to the 6th over c to the negative 10. Here they have the same sign, so it's positive. Okay, here they had different signs, so it's negative. Okay, and so that was power of a power. Okay, and now to get rid of the negative, we just bring it up here. So negative exponent, so that we end up with b to the 6th, c to the 10th. Alright, so here, first property we're going to use quotient of powers property. Alright, so we have 9s to the 5th. Well, let's go ahead and divide it. Let's go ahead and divide that. So let's go 3 into there. 3 goes into 9 3 times. Alright, so we end up with 3, and then we'll have s to the 5th. Then we'll end up with t to the negative 4 minus negative 4. Because we're going to end up subtracting those. Okay, so we have the double negative, so it's going to be plus here. So we end up negative 4 plus negative 4, so we end up with 3s to the 5th, t to the 0. Alright, and then that's our 0 property again. Anything 0 powers 1, so we end up with 3s to the 5th. Alright, so we're going to simplify these. Here we're just going to use the power product property, product of a power. And the way we're going to do that is t to the 7th plus 2 minus 8. Okay, so we get 2 will be 9 minus 8. So we end up with t to the first power, which we're just going to write as t. Okay, now here for number 7, first thing we're going to use the power of a product. Okay, so it's going to be, we're going to end up with negative 3 and 4. Okay, and then from there we're going to use power of power. So we're going to end up with negative 3 times negative 2, same sign, so it's going to be 6. And then we'll end up with negative 8 here. So again, when there we use the power of power. Okay, now we have this negative exponent, which we don't like. So we're going to write it k to the 6th over n to the 8th. Okay, and so that one we use negative exponent. Alright, here we're going to use power of a quotient first. So we end up with f5 times negative 3, and then g negative 2, negative 3. And then from there we're going to use power of power. So we end up with f, I'm going to go ahead and multiply them together. So we get negative 15 over g to the 6th. Okay, so that was the power of a power. Negative 3 times 5 gives us the negative 15. Negative 3 times negative 2 gives us 6. Okay, now we're going to get rid of this negative exponent. Now we're going to use, for that, we'll use the negative exponent power property. And so what that means is we're going to put it underneath. So we end up with 1 over f to the 15, g to the 6th. And that would be our final answer. Yeah, I'm going to try to do this real quick. Anything 0 powers 1, all of this is to 0 power, so that's 1. In part 3 of this lesson, I'm going to do a couple of word problems.